Welcome to today's 5-minute Bible study in the book of Leviticus. Today we are starting chapter 11 in the book, and that begins a new section of Leviticus. Chapters 11 through 15 talk to us about cleanliness or purity. That is, when you come before the Lord to worship, when you come into His tabernacle to be in His presence, you must be clean. You must be pure. And this section deals with a lot of regulations on cleanliness. Now, there are two parallel sections in the book of Leviticus that deal with purity or cleanliness. The first one, chapters 11 through 15, talks about ritual purity or ritual cleanliness. And then the second section, which is chapters 18 through 20, we'll get to that later, deals with moral purity or moral cleanliness. But the lesson from them all is to come into the presence of the Lord, you must be clean. You must be pure. Now this section, chapters 11 through 15, as I said, they deal with ritual cleanliness. And these are the chapters where we find the instructions on clean and unclean food. What kind of animals are clean for you to eat and what kind are unclean. It also deals with matters such as childbirth and what must be done after childbirth for purification or cleanliness. It deals with skin diseases, normally translated leprosy. This is where all the instructions on leprosy are given and how you can be cleansed from that. For when you're a leper, you're unclean, but there's a way to become clean again. It deals with houses that become unclean from mold or mildew and how the houses must be cleansed. It also deals with such things as bodily fluids and what kind of bodily fluids make you unclean and how you become cleansed again. Now, when we read these chapters, we're not quite sure what to do with them. They kind of surprise us, and we're talking about clean and unclean foods. You can't eat pig, for instance. We know that, and it's in Leviticus. And the matter of skin diseases, the matter of mildew in your home, that surprises us. The matter of bodily fluids. So we're just not sure what to do with all of this. And normally when we read these chapters, we just read through them quickly, and we say, well, they don't really apply today. We remember the New Testament. Jesus says that the dietary restrictions apply no longer. That was only for the Old Testament. And we remember Jesus declared all foods clean and said none of them are unclean anymore. So we're not quite sure what to do with these instructions in Leviticus about ritual cleanliness. We're going to spend a few days talking about them and trying to give some instruction on them to understand what Leviticus was teaching. But I do want to point out a couple of things that's very important. The basic idea of these instructions on cleanliness are being ritually clean before you come to the tabernacle was to distinguish the people of God from the pagan peoples around them. The children of Israel were to be different. They were to be set apart. Now in chapter 11, verses 44 and following, in the midst of these instructions about cleanliness and uncleanliness, purity and impurity, God says this, I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourself and be holy, for I am holy. Do not make yourself unclean by any creature that moves along the ground. I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore, be holy, because I am holy. So the basic meaning of to be holy is to be set apart, to be distinct. God is holy because there is none other besides Him. He alone is God. And we as people are to be holy, to set apart from Him, and we are to be distinguished from the peoples around us. And part of the meaning, or the heart of the meaning of these laws of cleanliness and impurity have to do with being set apart, distinguished as the people of God. There's another passage in chapter 15, verse 31, at the end of this section on cleanliness that says this. So chapter 15, verse 31. You must keep the Israelites separate from things that make them unclean, so they will not die in their uncleanness for defiling my tabernacle, which is among them. So in other words, you're not to come into my tabernacle, my place of worship, unclean. It will defile my sanctuary. And you're to be separate. So in some ways, these laws of cleanliness and purity, as they apply to rituals, such as foods that are clean and unclean, etc., they are a way to distinguish the Israelites as being different, as being the people of God. Now, the next few days, we'll look in a little more detail at some of these and try to unpack their meaning. But let's understand the heart of it. God's people are to be set apart for God, and they are to be distinguished from the peoples around them who do not belong to God. And these laws of cleanliness and of ritual purity have to do with being distinct as the people of God. Now, those for us is also quite true. As the people of God today, we need to be set apart as the people of God. There'll be something different about folks who follow Christ than those who don't. There ought to be something about our life that shows we belong to the Lord. You know, in the book of Romans, Paul says, don't be conformed to the world. Don't be like the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We are not to be like the world. We're not to be conformed. We are to be distinct, set apart, for we are the people of God. And so these laws of cleanliness and of purity in the Old Testament teach us some things about being set apart as the people of God. In the next few days, we'll look in some more detail at these to try to understand their application for us today. But the primary message is clear. As the people of God, let us be set apart for God. We need to be different from the rest of the world because we belong to Him. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue our 5-minute Bible study in the book of Leviticus.